Hey everybody, it's one half of your co-host, Nate Fay, and welcome to Ben and Nate's Questions that we ask people on the internet. My name's Nate Fay, and I'm a licensed massage therapist as well as an osteopath, and I've been practicing in New England for the past 18 years as well as a teacher for Eric Dalton's myoskeletal alignment technique.
And my name is Ben. I have been a massage therapist, licensed massage therapist since 2003. During that time, I've done everything from work as an employee in a salon and spa setting where I did facials and pedicures to being an owner in a multi-therapist office where at one point we employed 8 massage therapists and brought in just under $500,000 in revenue in a year. I put a lot of value in investing in my learning, and therefore you'll see me in a lot of continuing education workshops across the country. I have a bachelor's degree in communication studies with a minor in German, because who doesn't want to know how to speak a little bit of German? I also have a associate's degree of applied science in massage therapy. I'm nationally board certified in therapeutic massage and bodywork. I also have the title of Master Myoskeletal Alignment Therapist from Eric Dalton and the Freedom from Pain Institute. I've taught several continuing education courses regionally and across the country. And I also have a small YouTube channel called Benji and the Massage. So if you're ever bored, you can check that out. I want to share that both Nate and I, the opinions that we share are ours and ours alone. We don't represent any other person or organization. What we say is all on us. And we don't consult any AI chatbots in the making of this production.
Hey Ben, that was really impressive, man. That was super impressive. And for those of you that want to be in the know, Ben and I were talking before we hit the good old record button. And I was telling Ben how young you look compared to me. I was feeling very gray today. How are you feeling today, buddy?
Feeling really well. I just got over a cold last week, and you just had a birthday not that long ago. You're looking pretty good yourself.
Thanks, man. Another year older, a little bit grayer, but like we were saying, still the mindset of like a 16-year-old boy at this point. So,
which reminds me, I got something to ask you. You're a music guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you this question. Why was Billy Joel's laundry still wet when he went to go check it?
Why was Billy Joel's laundry still wet when he went to check it? I don't know, Ben.
Because he didn't start the dryer.
I love it, man. Hey, I have a question for you. It's probably not going to be have a funny outcome, but I think it'll have a good outcome for our listeners.
Yeah.
What was today's Monday, by the way? Today's Monday, September 18th. And so what was the best thing that happened in your world last week?
Last week, the best thing that happened in my world is I got over being sick. I mean, it's not a huge thing, but I'm glad not to be sick. How about you? What happened in your world last week, Nate?
I had a good week. I'm gearing up to head out to San Francisco this weekend to teach Eric Dalton's myoskeletal alignment technique out in San Francisco.
Nice.
On the other side of the country, who remembers East Coast, West Coast rap wars? I was like 11 when that happened, so I guess I really don't remember. So I think the best thing that happened to me, man, is our numbers came in, and that class is that class is at capacity. So that was good news. I was happy to hear that.
That's fantastic. So tell me, because you're going to be teaching in the future too. So people who are watching this in the future that miss the opportunity to see you in San Francisco, where can they go check up on you to see where you're going to be at?
Well, I'm putting together I've got one more class after San Francisco. This will be my third or fourth one this summer, fall. And I'm going to be with Eric Dalton, my good friend Eric Dalton, with him in November at his annual Pain in Paradise retreat, and teaching at Eric that week and teach assisting with Eric. And then I'm putting together my schedule for 2024. And right now it's looking, what I have firmed up right now is Warwick, Rhode Island in March, as well as Wilmington, Delaware, also in March. And then I'm working on a couple other classes. I don't have contracts yet, so I'm going to hold off on mentioning those. But definitely Warwick and Delaware are on the books for 2024 so far.
That sounds awesome, Nate. So People can get updates where at ericdalton.com.
EricDalton.com. Yeah, check it out and sign up for his newsletter. He sends out a pretty cool technique of the week too. So
Awesome.
Ben, this is a pretty cool thing that we've been doing. Questions that we ask people on the internet. And this kicked off in August, right? And I asked a few questions, and that we've had some really good responses from our colleagues and friends out in the massage and manual therapy world. And why don't you tell us what this week's question of the week is?
Well, let me tell you about this week's question of the week. I'm just going to read it because it's a good one. So, without naming classes, teachers, etc., any specifics within the continuing education world, tell us one thing that you loved about a class and one thing that you did not like about a class or a course. So feel free to go into detail. And that was what was asked on the internet, right? So I want to ask you, Nate, was there any specific reason behind that question, any history behind that you want to share?
Yeah, there's a two-way street to this question. I was thinking two things. Like you, for a long time, I was a continuing education junkie, and I still am. Quite a bit in between my practice and my teachings and whatnot. And I got to thinking when I was starting my career as a continuing education instructor, I one of the things that I was thinking about is I wanted to make sure that I taught in a way that or pulled from teachers that I absolutely loved over the years, specifically things that I loved. And there was some things in classes over the years that I didn't like, right? And that hit me sort of the wrong way. Maybe it was an interaction, with another student or to the class or something along those lines. The other side of the coin, Ben, is one of the things that I was thinking about. This is actually also a question that I asked new clients coming into my office. And I certainly asked the question a little bit differently, but if they check off or write onto their questionnaire that they've had other types of therapy before, whether it's chiropractic, physical therapy, massage therapy, and the list goes on. As I'm gearing up to get to work on them, I ask them, what's one thing that you loved about your session in the past? What's one thing that stood out to you that maybe you felt really good about? And what's one thing that you didn't like that happened in the therapy session? So that I make sure that I don't repeat that same mistake, for them again. So, but back to continuing education, we had about 23 responses to this question. And, I know we both read through all of them. So Ben, let me ask you, what was a response that you loved the most that you saw?
Here's the one I picked. It reads, CEs are an opportunity to discover new techniques, acquire new perspectives on massage. Just when I think I'm bored with my profession, the humdrum of routine techniques, blah 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 music, boom, a good course will turn me on my head, literally, and make me look at anatomy and massage with a different optic. So what I liked is that, you know, good quality education, it can help reconnect you with your tribe, reignite your passion for massage, and resonate with a room full of other passionate massage therapists. So that's really what this kind of spoke to me as. What do you think,
Yeah,
Nate?
I love that. And by the way, just I want to just open that response because I actually really I didn't pick that response, by the way. And but one of the things that I actually liked about that response, it was my top three that I almost picked. But let's talk about this for a minute, Ben. And I think this is a good conversation for our audience as well. One of the things that's so cool about being a massage therapist, we seemingly have this endless ceiling, right, of learning. Like we can just keep learning. We can keep going in various directions. We can specialize in one thing, but we can also keep chasing that specialization. And I always pose the question hypothetically when I teach, like, why do we come to classes? Why do people come to classes? And I think generally, right, to keep the flame going, right, to keep that candle burning, if you will, to keep our passion up. Techniques is a huge one. And one of my favorite answers that people say to me is that maybe the instructor is going to say something that's going to resonate with them and maybe help change that person's practice down the road. So anyway, I think it's pretty cool the amount of continuing education that we can chase in our profession.
That is absolutely the case. I mean, I can tell you right now, I've had instructors who have said things that have changed my career. I'm still a massage therapist because of an educator, a specific educator. Otherwise, I would have quit 15 years ago.
Me too, buddy. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one we can agree on. Well, it came down to two responses for me. And I actually picked the response that hit a little closer to home for me. So it won my heart by about that much. Okay. So I'm going to
Okay.
go ahead and read that for you guys. So one thing that I love is when an instructor can explain things concisely. I love background info and a good anecdote, right? But some instructors pontificate just to hear themselves talk and it shows, right? One thing that really ticked me off was an instructor shutting down my question and making me feel stupid for asking for it. And then she goes on to explain what her question was. But she does say this. Now, maybe the teacher didn't know their answer, or maybe delving into it would have been too far off track. But she just acted like it was a ridiculous question. And that one hit home for me. And I can specifically remember being in a continuing education class. It was probably about 10 years ago. And that's exactly what happened. I asked a question. The instructor shut it down in a way almost to sort of like embarrass me in front of the whole class. And it really left me, with a sour sort of, a sour puss, if you will. Why would an instructor do that when we're all there to learn? And I wasn't there to derail the instructor. The question I felt was right on topic to what that person was teaching all the time. And that was one of those moments, and you mentioned this, that almost derailed me, not from wanting to quit the aspect of massage therapy, but certainly maybe stop me in my tracks of the route that I was going at that time. Adult learners, Ben, adult learners, we're a different breed, right? When we're in classes. And sometimes, certainly intent with asking a question, sometimes people might be there to derail the instructor or maybe show off their little bit of knowledge. But I also think it's the instructor's responsibility to know and understand those things and be able to turn it around without embarrassing the student, be able to answer their question the best way possible, and then keep the class moving. I really like that response.
Yeah, that makes me think about, when you're in the room with a client, right? There's some things that are important to establish trust and safety.
Yeah.
And that's probably the exact same in a continuing education room. You have to have the trust, and those people need to feel safe that they can ask any and any question they want to. Yeah, without any ridicule. Because that's how if someone's afraid to ask a question, how are they going to learn?
How are they going to learn? And I love what you just said that about trust. And that's one of my favorite ways to start my class is thank everybody for trusting me that I'm going to help benefit them more. Just like you, buddy, when you're teaching, I know you do the same thing as well, which is just a great way to be.
Tell me a little bit more about your thoughts from what you gathered from these answers. Are there any themes you came across or anything that you want to add, or maybe talk about how you would answer these questions?
Yeah, sure. I think the overall thing, people were a little bit, I think generally a little bit individualized with the response this week. But one of the themes that I did come across with the answers were things like people liked a genuine instructor. People liked an instructor that, had a good way of being able to teach the technique, throw some science in there, throw their anecdote in there, but make it as natural as possible and not necessarily teach from directly from a textbook or more of a robotic way of teaching. So that was kind of the general theme that I got. People's dislikes, if you will, were, fairly different across the board. And I think one of the reasons I chose that favorite answer was I think that probably would have been close to my answer too. I love when instructors are, do something along the lines of, if you got 20 people in a class or 50 people in a class, I feel like a great instructor makes you feel like you're the only one in there, and each person feels like they're the only one in there. And again, has a way about them where they have that healthy balance of all those things, right? Gets people to walk away having learned something. Sometimes we teach 30 to 50 techniques in a class. And I say to everybody, if you leave here with two or three strong techniques and maybe you've started to change your thinking, that's already a win. And that stuff's going to evolve down the road. And, I already said this part, but, I want to see more unity in our continuing education world, people working together. Somebody talked about sort of dissing other modalities and instructors. And I do see that a little bit in our field for some reason. And it's oftentimes disappointing to see that. And hey, man, for you instructors out there, be ready to answer questions, be ready to know how to guide those conversations and get people on track but make everybody feel like they're there to be a good massage therapist. How about you, buddy?
To play off of that a little bit, when those instructors need to be able to answer those questions, it's okay to say, I don't know, if you don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Nobody knows everything.
Uh, nope. And sometimes I like to say, I don't know, but I'm going to get back to you on that, even if it's a week
Exactly.
or two later. Yeah, man. Love that.
I take that as a challenge. If there's something I don't know, I'm going to find out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What was your takeaway on all this, buddy? What did you see? What was your takeaway with the theme and answers? And how would you have answered that?
Yeah. A lot similar to what you said, being for students to be able to feel connected. Little play off of last episode, feel connected to the instructor, right? And an instructor that is able to teach to all types of learning styles, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, personally challenge them, so they feel challenged, so nobody's bored in the class. Those are kind of my big themes.
So Ben, tell me a little bit about what you didn't like about maybe a class or some themes that you've experienced in the past that might have rubbed you the wrong way. See what I did there?
I like it. I could make a whole guide about things that I didn't like about classes, because that's where I figure out what classes I want to go back to and ones that I don't. Like you alluded to last episode, is people vote with their feet, right? If they like what you do, they're going to come back. If they don't like what you do, they're not coming back. Same thing with continuing education, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna keep the list kind of small, but one of them is, when an instructor doesn't give you time to absorb the information that they share with you. And this may be just me personally, but I need a little bit of time to absorb that. So maybe a pause, 15, 20-second pause, or something to that effect, to give you time to soak in that information. That's one of them. Another one is when an instructor doesn't really remember or allow to take regular breaks. It doesn't necessarily mean that breaks don't have to be scheduled in, but that's another part of that pause. Like I need some break time, because sometimes what I do personally is I go to my phone and I look up anatomy. I look up things that were brought up during the class so that I can be better prepared for the next part of the class, that kind of thing. Also, just going to the bathroom. It's like a lot of times I'll see instructors say, hey, do you guys need a break, or can we just power through this? And part of me thinks, well, if you need to keep powering through, then maybe you need to either talk less or come up with another class so that you're not including too much. Now, these are just my own personal dislikes about classes. Sometimes, not all the time, right? Number 3 to my guide is, when there's not enough time given to learning the application of the technique, technique time. I personally appreciate technique time. I want that time to learn it. And I'd rather walk away knowing 2 or 3 techniques really well than going over 30 that I have no clue how to incorporate. Let's see, I'm going to talk about assistants in a class too, because they play a big part in a class, and assistants can make or break a class. Teaching assistants is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, man, and we didn't even touch upon that. So yeah, let's talk about that. Go for it.
I like to feel how the work is applied. So I call over an assistant every time, whether I get the technique or not, because I want the person on the table to know what it feels like. But also, I need time to figure it out myself. So I need time to do the technique wrong before I can get it done right. And so sometimes you have assistants, which are they mean well, but they come over and they tell you what you're doing wrong. It's like, well, I appreciate that, but I need to do it wrong in order to get it right. It's kind of like if you have a basketball coach and you're learning how to dribble a ball, and they run up and they grab the ball away from you and they go, this is how you dribble. It's like, well, I need time to practice how to dribble to figure it out. So thank you, but let me figure it out. And I'm not saying all assistants do this, but that's just one of the ways that I process things. Is I'm a partial kinesthetic learner. I need some of that.
So, what do you think for those listening, right? For teachers listening, for teaching assistants listening, how do you think they should approach somebody? What do you think their word should be?
And I've been assisting for a long time, and I've experimented with a lot of ways. But just barging in and saying, hey, let me show you how to do it, or hey, can I show you something, is not, for me, it's not really the best way. And so one of the things I like to do is I like to approach them and say, do you mind if I share with you? Can I offer you a suggestion? Or sometimes I'll just flat out ask them, hey, would you like some help? Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't, right? Like, thank you, but I need to figure this out on my own. And I think a good instructor, a good teaching assistant should be able to help with just talking to someone, talking them through, and also putting their hands on and guiding them when needed.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I love that, and that's so important, and that's what we talk about with our teaching assistants as well. And I want to give her a shout out, but our good friend Kim Miller is the absolute queen of teaching assistants how to approach people exactly the way that you just talked about that. So that's super awesome, man. I'm glad that you talked about that.
Yeah, you want to make friends as a teaching assistant, not enemies, right?
Everybody has to leave their egos at the door. It's kind of a cheesy phrase, but it's true. It's like that child's mind sort of attitude. It's not show off time, man.
Yeah, that leads me into another one that for participants, being a participant in a class and being partnered up with someone, and during technique time, they start to do their own thing, right? They do the technique, and then they just move into, well, this is how I do it. And as much as that's cool and all, but I want to experience what the technique feels like, because I'm a kinesthetic learner. And if you start going and doing your own thing, that completely ruins it for me. I'd rather you do nothing than to try to, show me how you do things, right? I don't know if you've had that experience ever, Nate.
I've had that experience where, as a student, right? But man, as a teacher, and I've learned one of the many things that I've learned in being in the seminar business over the years is to lay some foundational ground rules in the beginning. So yeah, that's oftentimes one of the things, like, hey, we're here for myoskeletal alignment techniques for my classes. And I tell people, like, I get maybe you have a different way or a better way or maybe a cooler way than mine. And that's totally fine, but that's not why we're here. So I've learned to lay that down, because it's tough being in the front of the room and just seeing somebody going off, into their own world. And in my
Yeah.
younger days as a teacher, I let that kind of, but now it's like, no can do, no can do.
Yeah. Invite everyone to practice the techniques are being shown, And then maybe as an instructor, you give 2 minutes at the end of technique time to say, all right, do your thing. You have 2 minutes to do your own thing.
We tell them at 6:05 p.m. when class is over, have fun.
Do your thing. So one other thing that I'm going to put in my guide is I don't appreciate when participants are there basically just to fill in their continuing education requirements. And we could have a whole episode about this, I think.
Sure
But
could.
you could tell the people that are just there, oh, I'm just here because I need my CEs. And then the last one is when you get into those conversations where someone has, hey, I have a client who, and we all want to hear this, but it can sometimes derail from the whole class. And it's not that nobody wants to help you. Is that the right time to ask? And there's other ways to ask, like, hey, how would you approach a person who has such and such going on? Not, I have a client who, or can you talk to me about? And maybe you talk to the instructor at a break or at the end of the day, that kind of thing. So those are kind of a few things of my quick guide of how to get the most out of your next continuing education class.
I love that, Ben, and I'm going to look forward to that guide as well as our audience. That last thing you said about the I have a client who, one of our colleagues actually has a podcast called I Have a Client Who.
Right on, Ruth Warner.
Yeah, Ruth, man, our one of our awesome people in our fields. But and again, back to the whole how the instructor answers that question is knowing how, right, like just like you said, I think part of the theme tonight we talked about derailing the instructor, and but the instructor should know how to approach that in a polite, respectable, professional manner, rather than saying like we talked about earlier, that's a horrible question, and I don't answer those questions, and so that works both ways. So I'm glad that you brought that up, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. So tell me, Nate, what's your big takeaways from what we talked about today? What are some of the themes? What'd you learn?
Ooh, I learned a lot. I think this was a good conversation. I loved what you had to say about teaching assistants and approaching students. I love the takeaway of that we just have an endless ceiling of education, at our fingertips now, if you will, and how we should come into class both as instructor and student. And I like how that conversation opened up tonight. And I think those are my three big takeaways from tonight's conversation. How about you, brother?
Oh man, I always come up with a lot of questions more than anything else. And some of the questions that came out of my research and looking back over this stuff is, why do people pick the instructors that they go to? What are some of the criteria that leads them to that instructor? Is it subject matter? Is it their approach to the technique? Is it their personality? Is there another connection? That kind of thing.
I think we're gonna have spin-off episodes of Ben and Nate's questions that we ask people on the internet. It's like old TV shows, like the Jeffersons became this, became that. I think that's gonna be us.
We're gonna have some really long titles. Ben and Nate ask questions on the internet because of episode number whatever. Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. And one of the things that I brought up earlier is, you vote with your attendance. If you go to an instructor, they're going to be able to continue to teach courses. If you have a negative experience with an instructor, do you go back? Are those people just going there because I'm getting my continuing education credits and I don't care what instructor I go to, I'm just checking the box. And so how does this weed out poor instructors? Because we have local continuing education instructors, that teach probably at massage schools and things like that. But then you have the more regional and national level instructors, and they need people to attend, otherwise they can't afford to travel, right?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, man, it's continuing education business, as I've learned, can be a very fulfilling business to be in. But based off of everything we talked about tonight, those are a lot of big takeaways. A lot of big takeaways.
Yeah, so let me ask our viewers, do you have a question that you think needs to be discussed? So let us know. Connect with us on social media through Facebook, through our Facebook pages, and we'll consider your questions for future episodes. Anything else you want to say to wrap us up, Nate? Where can people find more about you if they want to look you up?
Well, if people want to look me up on Instagram, Nate Fay OMT, and you can also find me on Facebook at Nate Fay or Myoskeletal Alignment of New England. How about you, brother?
Cool. Facebook, Ben Stone, and my Instagram is at Benji.massage. So check us out, and we got some cool things lined up for you in the future. So keep watching, and we'd love to interact with you in the future.
All right. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.